Today, I'm going to introduce you to the egg drop project. Make sure you guys have your egg drop project description out in front of you. As I go through this video, I'm going to highlight kind of the important parts of the egg drop project. And then when I see you guys in class, I can answer any detailed questions you might have. Now, both in class and through flipped lessons and readings, we're going to be talking about all of that important background information that's going to help you guys as you start to plan your egg drop projects. On your own time, don't forget to read through the introduction on the first page. This is going to give you a lot of valuable information that'll not only help you guys as you plan your projects, but it'll also help you answer your pre-lab questions, which will be due the same day as your project. So the basic objective of this project is to design a container that can protect a raw egg when you drop it from 30 feet onto pavement. This is an individual project that you're going to build. You're going to design it at home. You'll get one class period to work on a little bit of research, but everything else you do on your own, and then we bring it into school to test as a class. You will be given one day in class to start some research, but in case you want to start before then, I highly recommend you do some preliminary research. This project is kind of a classic project for physical science classes, and you'll be able to find a ton of resources online and ideas to give you a jump start as you start to plan your apparatus. So the way that I run my egg drop project is going to be a little bit different than some of the projects you're going to see online. So I'm going to talk about some of the constraints and guidelines you have to adhere to for your project. The first guideline is that your project must fall within the dimensions outlined here, which is 8.5 by 11 by 24. No part of the project can overhang these dimensions. So what I did here is I actually built a rectangular prism out of the dimensions that I just gave you. And in class, even prior to drop day, you're welcome to bring your project in. And what I'll do when we officially check your projects in is I'll make sure that your project, here's one from a previous year, fits within those dimensions by sliding it in and out of this prism. Guideline number 2 is pretty straightforward. I'm going to provide the egg for you guys. It has to be a raw, store-bought chicken egg. Size will be large. You're not allowed to do anything to the egg prior to the drop other than place it within your apparatus. You'll also only be given about a minute to insert it in, so that design constraint should be taken into account as well. Next, it is important that the egg container and all materials stay intact for the drop. So as you build it, make sure to build it strong. If anything falls off the apparatus other than the egg, you'll lose points. This part's a little bit tricky, but another design constraint is that I not only need to be able to see about a quarter of the egg at all times, but it also can't be covered with anything like a piece of plastic wrap or some kind of plastic door. It has to be completely exposed to the air. I'm going to show you a couple examples from previous years to help you understand this. So here's the COVID egg. This was from a couple years ago. The egg went right in this opening right here. It had a rubber band that secured it, but you can see that it was completely open to the air around it. In this one right here, this designer used this mesh sleeve to hold the egg. And what I say to people is if it's about a quarter of the egg shows, that's fine. So something like this with all these little holes and it's completely open on one side makes it fit within those constraints. If you're confused as you're building it, not sure if yours is actually gonna make it, just bring it in ahead of time and have me take a look or send a picture to me. The next one, number 5, is to make sure that your container can be opened easily, both to insert the egg, which should take about a minute, and then after the drop, you should also be able to easily take the egg out without it getting broken. If you cannot remove your egg from your project, or if it breaks when you are removing it, it counts as a broken egg. You need to be able to remove it from the project and show it to the crowd and prove that it has no cracks in it for it to count as an unbroken egg. Number 6 and 7 are pretty straightforward. You can't use glass, hydrogen, helium, any kind of electronic device for obvious reasons. You may, however, use a parachute. You're only allowed to have one parachute, and the overall dimensions of the parachute cannot exceed a piece of paper. So I'm going to give you guys a quick example how you would measure that. Here's again a project from a previous year with a student that used a parachute. And when we checked her parachute in class, I would take the parachute, make it nice and flat, and make sure that the overall dimensions stayed within that piece of paper. For number 9, you may not have 2 separate containers that are tethered together by a string or something like that. It has to be one apparatus. Number 10 is no perishable materials, including any food items, no cereal, peanut butter, etc. We don't want to attract any ants, and I can't have anything that needs to be refrigerated. And number 11 is just a reminder that there's a chance your apparatus could sit in class for a little while. If you were going to use balloons or something like that, they might deflate, and you can't alter your project before check-in. So design it so that it could possibly sit for at least a few days and then still be ready to go and head over to drop. A couple suggestions and reminders are that your design materials can be readily available. You don't need to go out and buy stuff for this project. You should definitely test your project at home prior to bringing it in with the supervision of an adult. And remember that these are going to be dropped from 30 feet onto pavement. So make sure to take that into account. Oftentimes those students that build and test and redesign do the best. When you turn your project in, you also have to turn in a drawing. Now, it can be a drawing that you actually do by hand, or you could build your project, take a photo of it, and then annotate it. But it's important to show and label the materials that you used, about how much you used for it, how they were attached to form the overall container. You can think of it kind of like a blueprint. The drawing will be worth 10 points, and then you have to type up some pre-lab questions as well. The total of those will be 25 points. You will complete these pre-analysis questions similar to other labs. It's meant to be done while you're designing your project. Some of them you might answer after you've designed your project, and a couple of the questions you can answer prior to actually doing your project. But these will all be due the same day as your project. You're going to want to type them up and get them printed out to turn in that day. I'm not going to read through the questions with you right now. I'll let you do that on your own, but I will encourage you to use the background information on the first page of your packet, and then also refer to lessons from class on motion, velocity, acceleration, and force. On the day that your project is due, we are going to go through all of these competition guidelines and check to make sure that your project falls within all of them. If your project is too big or you accidentally used food, you'll lose points for that individual constraint that you did not adhere to, but you'll be given 1 or 2 days to bring your project home, redesign it, and then bring it back in for the drop. If you don't do that, you will lose all the competition points possible to earn in the lab, and you will not be allowed to participate in the drop. So it's really important that when you guys are designing your projects and you're researching online, you make sure to pay attention to all of the guidelines I've outlined for you. There are going to be a slew of people online that tell you this is the best egg drop project you can make, but it might not work for our particular project. You can redesign some of them, and that's kind of what I'm hoping you do, is you get a little bit creative, you get inspired online, but you make the egg drop project your own. If you guys have questions, again, I will encourage you guys to finish your projects early. You can always bring them in prior to the due date to check them in. And lastly, just to keep things interesting, I offer bonuses for a number of different categories. So as you design, as you name your project, you might want to keep these bonuses in mind, as they could help you earn some extra points on the lab. The first one is whichever project has the least mass in an unbroken egg gets the bonus. Most mass unbroken egg also gets a bonus. Most creative material used, most creative design, most creative name, these all get bonuses. You guys will be measuring your velocity, so I also give bonuses for the slowest project unbroken and the fastest project unbroken. And then just for fun, most explosive impact gets a bonus. And then lastly is my award that I call my No Way Award. And this is for anybody whose project that I secretly don't think is going to make it, but then it does. So over the next few days, feel free to read through your packet, start to come up with ideas. In class, you can look on our syllabus. We're gonna have about maybe half a class where you can start doing some research, and feel free at any time to come and ask me some questions. I think you guys are really gonna love this lab.